Welcome everyone to the latest edition of the You Unleashed podcast with Femi Akinyemi. The podcast where we bring amazing guests to share their amazing stories that could transform our lives and help us to unleash our greatest selves. It's been a minute since I've come to you, a long time actually, but you know what? If I did have to come back, it was going to be for an amazing guest. And that is what I have for you today. I have with me someone who needs no introduction for those of you who are very familiar with her. And by the end of this podcast, for those of you who didn't know her but now do, you will be gobbling up all her content and following her up because she is someone who is just all about faith, execution, passion. And even when I was just following her, I just realized she was just a person of action. Go, 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 go. So I love tapping into her energy, and her story is unique and amazing. So it's really a pleasure to have you, Esther Longe. Esther, welcome to the Unleashed podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Femi. I'm so excited to be here.
No, thank you. So, I look at your profile and you have a very unique story. And you probably fall into maybe less than 100 people in the world. By the time you share your story, you probably, less than 100 people in the world who have been through what you've been. And I'm making that number off the top of my head. But do you know how many people have survived what you survived? Do you follow that? Do you know broadly how
No,
many?
no, I
Okay.
don't.
So, but we can assume it's probably going to be very low, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
very low, which makes you a very unique person. So I don't want to get into that first because that would make everyone just go, wow. So I guess I want to say, the first thing I want to say is, as you look back on your life to everything you've been through to get to where you are today, when you look back, what's your number one feeling looking back on your journey of life to get to where you are today? What's your feeling when you look back on your life? Have you
I think, as cliche as it sounds, it's probably going to be gratitude. And I know you asked for one, but gratitude and joy, you know. Gratitude because I get to be here, and joy in that I haven't even started to scratch the surface. So it's exciting to know that there's still another half of my life yet to unfold. So I'm excited, and that is encapsulated in joy.
Yeah, and I get that because that must be, and ultimately that should be the feeling for all of us because everybody here, as I was speaking to one of my friends, and her daughter goes to a really good school, and she was telling her daughter that, look, life is a fight because the moment you were conceived, even then it was a fight because if you know the way biology works, you are the one that survived to be conceived in my womb. So day one, life is a fight. So the fact that you're here, you have to be grateful from day one and make the most of every opportunity. So I think it's quite amazing what you say, which is about gratitude. And I think a lot of us, we go through life not realizing how blessed we are, right? We don't realize how fortunate we are.
Yeah,
Yeah. And there
yeah,
was something I read in one of your profiles, I think in your Instagram post, where you said where you are is someone else's prayer point.
that's
And that
it.
struck me, which is kind of like saying what you have is what someone else wants, right? Speak on that a
Mhm.
bit. When you say that, dig deeper into that. What do you mean by that?
I think that a lot of times, so it's an interesting cycle, and sometimes I wonder how God feels, because we're praying, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, please, 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 give me my husband, give me my wife, give me my job, give me this thing, and you're fasting, in fact, you're praying like never before, you're crying, and then the job comes, and then you're like, oh God, I really would like to spend time with you, but I got to be at work, time's going, da, 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 da. And then you get this manager and this thing that you testified in church and said, oh Father, I just thank you for this amazing job. And everybody knows that it was a God job, right? All of a sudden you get this manager and you're like, I don't even think that, did I even hear from God? Was this really the will of God? Is this really, do you get, as in, am I here?
Yeah,
Oh Lord, please. And the cycle starts again. You begin to pray, oh God, please give me a new job, give me a new job. But if you would actually pause and reflect and take a second, you will realize that you are living in some of your answered prayers. The house that you're living in now was once a prayer point.
Mm.
The job, the life that you are living right now was once a prayer point. And it was once a prayer point for you. It is also right now somebody's prayer point. There's somebody that is looking at you, no matter where you are and you're complaining, somebody's looking at you and saying, oh, I wish I had what this person had. And so, if we're able to stop and reflect, then we're able to be grateful. And then, that from that point of gratitude, now begin to say, okay, Lord, I thank you for what you've done. Help me to know if my time in this season is over, if it's time for me to move on to something new, and what is this new thing that you're asking me to move on to. So, just an example. Yesterday, I was teaching a class, and as somebody was saying, God answered my prayer and got me and gave me. I got this job that allowed me to stay on in the UK. I don't know I'm not that grateful, but and I'm looking at this person like, you do know that there are people who they finish their courses, they cannot find anybody to file, for them, and they are kicked back to wherever it is that they're coming from. So can you hear yourself? You have somebody paying for you to stay in a different country while you figure out what your next move is. So I think a lot of us could do with a little bit more reflecting on wherever we are, in life.
Is that word perspective, isn't it? We lose
Yeah, definitely.
perspective sometimes,
Definitely.
and
It's one of my favorite
perspective is
words.
so. Yeah, yeah. And I think we also we measure ourselves by ourselves. Sometimes you look at someone else, and one of the things I'm always learning to do myself, because like you, I do a lot of coaching as well. One of the things I always try to do is help everyone understand that all of us are in the school of life, but my curriculum is different to your curriculum.
Definitely.
My assignment is different from your assignment. The path set for me is different from yours. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all informed by my background, who my parents were, where I'm from. So the distance I have to travel and yours are different. So someone who came from absolutely nothing, getting to be a humble civil servant is a lot. It's a big achievement.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who started with everything they've been given, so it's really about using the 5 talents kind of thing scripturally. It's almost like it's with everyone has one. Someone have one, some have three, some have five. It's what you do with it that
Mm-hmm.
is success. Success is not the same for everyone, but we all have responsibility to make the best of what we have to get where we should be. And so
Yeah.
don't say because he had five and I don't have three, and I don't have five, my three I have, I'm not going to bother with it because he got more than me. No, it doesn't work like that.
When we even talk about this analogy, some people think that quantity supersedes quality.
Mm.
So you can have five, right? And the five, I'm not local businesses, this and that, and you can have one, and your one is Apple or Facebook or Tesla, or do you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
your one
yes,
blows 1 million out of the water, And so, like you said, even the Bible says to compare ourselves with ourselves is foolishness. So a lot of times we're looking, oh, I wish I had 5 talents, but sometimes the problem that the person that has 5 talents is that they have is to even concentrate on which one should I even focus on per time per season. Because I have all these ones. Meanwhile, you have one, you can focus. This is what I have. I'm going to mine it, make sure that I take it to the nth degree and make sure that everything that is of value inside of it, I showcase it to the world. So like we are saying now, perspective changes everything. It changes
yeah,
the way that we even show up to the world. It changes the way that we value the things that we have been giving. Somebody can say, oh,
good.
my one talent is speaking. But you can be the best orator that there is, you know what I mean? And you're like you can become a president based on your speaking
Oh yeah,
ability.
oh
Like
yeah.
there's no cap. The only cap that is put is the one that we put on ourselves.
Yes, and that's where you have to find. We're going on to your next thing I saw that I'm curious about with you is you said you have to find your tribe. And there was something you said. You said, I'm not for everybody. You said, I'm not for everybody. You have to find your tribe. And it's one of those messages that is easy to, it's, I won't say it's easy to say it. We all know it, but we struggle to practice it because ultimately we are social human beings and we all want to be loved. We all want to be wanted. We all want to be appreciated. So to be able to go, this is, these 3 people are my people. And these are the people that champion me, support me, and everyone else, I love you, but all good. How, how easy do you find it to get to that point where you understand that you're not for everybody. And because I want, what I'm trying to do is also encourage our listeners, help them understand that you have to start focusing on yourself and being the best you can be. And being the best you can be is for the people you are sent to, not to everybody.
That's right. That's honestly, you are summed it up, but I'll now walk because the truth of the matter is this:
Yeah.
there are at least 7 billion people in the world, at least.
Yeah.
But let me backtrack. There's something in us as human beings inherently that wants to be liked by everybody.
Hmm.
But as we grow older and begin to um, understand and hone our identity, you realize that you're not like everybody else and you're not for everybody. And I always say this, I say, look, there are people that don't like bread, there are people that don't like ice cream, there are people that don't like pineapple, and the ice cream that they don't like is not because they are lactose intolerant or they just don't like ice cream. The people that don't like chocolate, do you understand? You know, and if I want to even go deep, there are people that don't like Jesus. So why do you think they must like you, right? But the people that you are called to, they will respond to your message. They will respond to you like you are literally the best thing since sliced bread. And you will not have to work as hard to convince them of your value, to convince them of why they should track with you or why they should go through life with you because they already see you. They already see your value and they're like, this is somebody that I want to align with. So a lot of times we waste very valuable time and energy trying to convince people that are not our stakeholders to buy into the message of our lives. But if you use that time and energy to refine your message, to continue to mine your value, you will find that those that love you even more, and they make up for the ones that don't. So even if you look at even brands, because my background is in marketing, we look at Apple. There's always this Apple versus Samsung debate. Do you understand? The people that are Android users, they swear on their Android. The people that are Apple, meanwhile, people will be abusing Apple. Apple, your design does not change. That's for your pocket because the people every September, the minutes they stand up, do that their presentation, by December, there are people that are queuing for this product. There are people, so you can say what you want, but the people that are brand loyalists are the brand loyalists. There's some people
Yeah.
that they will live and breathe, die with Android. No problem. Jiggers, the market, the stage, the world is big enough for everybody to fly. It is when there is a lack mentality, meaning that, if this person doesn't like me, then I'm finished. No, if this person doesn't like you, there are 10 others that will. And so when you look at life from an abundance mindset through I am the value mindset, then you find that people are drawn to you and what you carry. And you don't have to convince them as much, because they already see what is inherent in you.
Yeah. And I love that you connected it to your marketing because you got there ahead of me. Because ultimately, the best businesses are the ones who are sure of who their customer is because you can target your marketing, your everything. And it's the same for all of us. Not everybody can be your friends. And I think when I do a lot of career coaching for people as well, I always tell them, you can't work for every company.
Mm-mm.
There are some companies you go to and they just celebrate you. The thing you did somewhere else that everyone looked at it like, you go somewhere else and they say,
Mhm.
wow, you're amazing. And yet you want to go. So, and this comes back to my mind. I think when I was younger, I always wanted to work for really, really big companies. But when I got there, I realized that for the big brands, they're very impersonal, it's very process driven. And I was always like just a face in the crowd. But when I worked for smaller companies, I love interaction with people. I
Mm.
love being people. So all of a sudden, when I was in these smaller places, my engagement came to life and I felt like I could have more of an impact. I
Yeah.
think the message is kind of for people here is that in your personal life, in business, in everywhere, you have to find where you're celebrated and where you're appreciated and wanted, right? Isn't that the
Yep,
message
yep, yep.
ultimately
That's
that
it.
this is?
That's it. In general, wherever you are, just go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Now, I must put a caveat to that because I find that, part of our generation and definitely the generation that is coming after, there is something that is missing, which is the ability to stick at it ability, the ability to stick
Mm,
through things. So a lot of people say, oh, no, 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 it's not giving, it's not working for my mental health. And before you even get a chance to even find out why you're there and what it's about, you're moving on to the next thing. This is not what we are saying. What we are saying is be so secure in your identity and in
mm,
the value that you carry as a person that you go and you expect to be valued. You don't have to
Yes.
convince people of your value. You don't have to convince people to partner with you, to track with you. It doesn't say that you're perfect or you are, there are no places to improve, but it just lets you know that the people already celebrate you for the essence of you, and whatever it needs to be added, they are willing to work with you through whatever the processes are.
Yeah, that's true. It's about knowing your identity and knowing that you are who you are and your experiences make up who you are. And that
Yeah.
gives you your own unique perspective that
Mm-hmm.
somebody will value. And I think the also that thing is I don't know if that's what you find as well is try not to take it personal when you're not for people. Don't take it
Yes.
personal. I think that's why a lot of us we take it personal, right? That
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
person doesn't like me, or I don't get
Yeah.
on with that person. We try to force ourselves and then we cause more stress and make it even
Mm.
worse.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's so
yeah,
good. That's actually
yeah.
really good. Yeah.
So I couldn't let you go before we now start getting into because we're kind of going back to front. So when I tell your profile, it said plane crash survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I went, I've never seen that before. And I went, is this possible? And I guess that's why when we started the conversation, we're speaking about you are one of the few people who have been through this near death experience of being plane crash. So by sharing as much as you feel comfortable sharing, I mean, what was life like before for you? Who were you before? And this whole event happening, how does that, when you look at your life and that chapter, when you, how have you come to reconcile yourself with it and how did the whole thing happen? I mean, in your own words, talk us through that whole, when you narrate it, how do you narrate that whole just chapter of your life and that whole thing?
I feel like you asked me like three or four questions
I
in
know I
one.
have, and it's because it's such, and the reason why is because, and this is where you can also help as well, is because there are some people I've met who have been through, let's call them traumatic events that sometimes they they struggle to deal with articulating the shame because maybe it's not something they've dealt with, unpacked themselves yet. So part of me was trying to find the right way to ask you so you can feel comfortable. But also, I kind of also know I've been with you long enough and followed you long enough to know that you've embraced it and you've used it as part of your story to become who you are today. So I guess the way I'll put it is tell us more about your experience as a plane crash survivor, what led up to it and how it shaped you to who you are today.
Okay, so thank you. That okay. So as concisely as possible. So I grew up in a single parent home, right? And
Mm,
up until that point in my life, yes, I was driven. Yes, I went after things, and by the grace of God, I had good education. But I never really thought that there was anything remarkable. I mean, yes, I was driven, I had ambition, but remarkable that God would single me out for anything. It was not, in fact, I even thought that God was like a heavenly uncle. So I didn't think I was on his radar. Um, and then fast forward to 2006, which is when I go off, is when it happened, when I go for National Youth Service, which is something that happens in Nigeria when you finish your
mm,
first degree, right? So I was posted to Sokoto. Now, as a bit of background, in the year 2000, my auntie died in a plane crash.
mm,
So she went on a missionary journey for Deeper Life, which is Deeper Life Christian Ministries, is a church
mm.
in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And the Kenyan airplane that she was in crashed into the sea. And then we're told that we're lucky or fortunate to be able to find her body to bury. But that had an impact. Not, I mean, on me, I just pretended that she remained in Port Harcourt where she lived, and that's how I processed that grief. But for my mom, it impacted the way that she flew, right? So she stopped flying internationally and locally. And it wasn't broken until 2014 when my
Was
younger
she your
brother,
mom's sister?
yes, she was
Was
my
she your
mom's
mom's
younger
sister?
sister. Yeah, my mom's younger
Okay.
sister. So my mom did not fly until 2014 when my younger brother got married.
Wow.
So so fast forward now to 2006, when we finish uni, NYC lists come out, and they say I'm posted to Sokoto. I'm like, you said what? I did not even remember that Sokoto was a state in Nigeria because the last time I heard about Sokoto was in states and capital,
It's like
in primary school, right?
like,
So
oh,
I'm like,
say what?
Sokoto what? As a what? You know? And it was I think 36 hours by road and an hour and a half by plane. So it was like almost like a no-brainer. You'd have to fly, and I remember my mom being so prayerful, and in fact she wanted me to defer my NYC posting. She was like, wait for batch B. But I'd heard stories about how you would wait 6 months for batch B and they'll push you to the exact same place. So I'm like, I'm not going to
Mm.
waste 6 months to end up having to go there, So she prayed for me and she was like, Lord, this is my firstborn, you know, take her and bring her back safely to me at the end of this process. And so I go to Sokoto and I'm there for 9 months, and it was an interesting time.
You, you spent 9 months there.
I spent 9 months in
Well
Sokoto.
done.
My idea when I was going was I was only going to spend 3 weeks in camp, right?
The
But the
usual,
people that
yeah.
were the people that were redeploying, they were saying, oh, they have brain surgery, they have this. I said, God forbid, I cannot swear for myself because I want to redeploy. So I just, I was like, okay, it looks like I'm here, and it taught me a lot about myself. I think that's a different conversation, but I was there for 9 months. Now, I'm 21 at that time, about to be 22 in November. So you're 21 and you think, oh, you can fight. Because every time I would come home, it was a dramatic production because my mom, would pray, fast and pray. Do you really have to come back? Do you really have to, do this? And I'm like, I can't please. I need to come for my sanity's sake. I need to come back to civilize. Well,
Mm.
I need to come back, right? And I would come, and when I was returning, because the flights were on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, my mom would start fasting on Monday and won't stop fasting until Wednesday when she knew I'd landed safely, right? So it was always a strain on her. For me, I always used to tell people that I believe that air travel is one of the safest means of transportation because I
And it
promise
is.
you, yeah, because you know how many people die, in road accidents on a daily basis, right? So I always used to say this. I even had friends who were afraid of flying, who would change their flight tickets to fly on the same day as me because I was so confident in this thing that I was saying. So fast forward to October, right? My friends have been flying up and down. So I'm like, I want to fly. I'm an adult. I'm 21. Why do I have to tell my mom I'm flying? So the very first day and time in my life that I would fly without telling my mom. So
You
there's
went
some of
outside the
us
cover. You went outside the cover.
they can. There are some of us, everybody can be climbing fence in secondary school. The day you climb fence, that's when the principal catches you. Do you get that? Some of us, I'm telling you, there's some
That's
of
the
us
best
that
you have.
I'm telling you, there are some of us that don't have the liberty to, color out of the safety
Mm.
lines, right? So I go to Abuja. So one of our NYC cohort mates or course mates, right? She had redeployed after camp. So she was in Abuja. So we said, oh, we'll go visit her. So my flatmate and I said, we're going to go see her in Abuja. So we left on Friday. Now we're leaving on Friday. The plane is full of the Sultan of Sokoto's entourage. So he was flying on Friday. So he's flying from Sokoto into Abuja. So the plane is full. I'm there for the weekend. We're coming back on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, I'm woken up at 5 a.m. by some minor ruckus in the house that I was staying. And,
Mm.
I decided, okay, let me have my quiet time. So I open our daily bread, at the time. And the reading for that day was James 4, 13 to 17, that says, and I summarize, who are you that says today you will do this, tomorrow you do that, that life is like a vapor. And you're about to
It's like
travel. I'm
this
like, oh
place.
Lord, please don't let my life be like a vapor. But you don't really think that anything is going to happen. You just pray those prayers, right? Don't just cover myself, and all of that. So we get to the airport, and I'd never been to Abuja before that day. So I didn't even know, where the exits were and all of that. But because I was serving in the airport in Sokoto, and in
Mm.
Sokoto, there's not then at the time, there wasn't a middle class. You're either very
Mm.
rich or very poor. And so it was the rich people that were flying because plane tickets were
Mm.
expensive. And so I looked around and I was familiar with this because there's certain people that are flying over. And so I looked around, saw familiar faces, and said, when they get up to go, I will follow them because I know that we're going to the same destination. And when they got up to go, I followed them. Now I got outside, and I don't know if you know the northern heat. So it's very hot in the north. And then there's a rain that comes after it's been so hot. And it's usually
Mm.
very heavy rain. And so it starts to rain. And we're, queuing to board the plane. And I remember thinking to myself that, oh, I wonder if the pilot can fly when it rains. But then I also thought to myself that they don't cancel flights you get every time that it rains. So it must be okay. So we get on the plane, and I used to say then that patience was not really my virtue. So I like to sit in the front of the plane. So as soon as the plane lands, I'm one of the first people out. That wasn't possible, however, because the plane was full of the Sultan of Sokoto and his entourage going back to Sokoto. And so they are taking business class and some of the, the early seats and so on, so I'm in the middle. So I'm trying to find my seat in the middle, and then I hear somebody call my full name at the time, Esther Kema Modan. I'm like, who knows me? And there was somebody as another couple who was serving, with the airline ADC. So I served with the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. She served with ADC. So she called my name. Now, for somebody who was already averse to sitting in the middle of the plane, the next few things that will happen, you guys, are part of the things that are supernatural about the testimony because I heard like a voice in my head saying, oh, go sit next to her. And I was like, okay. And I also, heard a voice saying, oh, be nice to everybody because you never know when you'll need people. So I was like, so it was like my friend's voice in my head, right? But now with the knowledge that I have, I realized that it was the voice of the Holy Spirit, right?
Mm.
Now, so I sat down beside her and the plane took off. Now, the flight had been delayed for a few minutes. So this is like 11 o'clock or around then in the morning. And so we took off and the plane is gaining altitude. Now, the flight had been delayed because the pilot was supposed to be refueling the plane. So we're gaining altitude, and all of a sudden the plane drops. And we just think that, oh, it's normal turbulence, right? So everybody's still okay. Then we're going again, and then it drops this time to when the plane drops and you like a roller coaster when you feel it in your stomach when you're like
Yes.
almost like the seat of your stomach drops. That's how it felt. Boom, and I was like, ah. So by this time, even though it's in the morning, the lights in the plane are on. The Muslims are calling Allah, the Christians are calling Jesus, children are crying. But even at that point in time, we just think that it is really bad turbulence. We don't think that anything untoward is about to happen. And so I look out the window and I hear somebody give me the language for it. I say I had a big bow, but the person, oh, you had a big bang. Yes, so I had a bang. I don't bang does not really convey the same feeling as bow. Do you know
How
what I
loud
mean?
it was, right?
But I heard a big bang, and then I looked out and then looked back to the front. So I looked out the window, heard the big bang, looked to my front, and I was sitting the same way I was sitting in the air, but in front of me was grass. The plane had crashed. Now, people ask me, did I black out? And no, I didn't black out, right? But I used to say that before that day, I believed in God, but that day I believed in angels because literally the way I was sitting in the air is how I was dropped on the ground. And you may
It
think
was
that,
like someone
okay, that
just
is,
dropped you. It was like they
yes,
just
that
dropped you
dropped me
specifically.
sitting. And you may think, oh, that's everybody, that survived. That's how they were dropped. But no, the person that was sitting right beside me, the impact of the plane crash flung her somewhere else and she was trapped under her seat, right? So I unhooked my seat belt and, I had my hand luggage under my bag, under my seat. I had my Motorola
It was still
Razor, the
there.
clip.
It was all still there.
It was there, it was under my seat. My Motorola Razor clip by my side. The phone was on the floor beside me, clipped it, unhooked myself, heard the person beside me screaming for help, unhooked her from her own seat, and then we climbed out of the debris. Climbed out of the debris and were in the field. We did not know where we were, right? We're in a field, it was raining, and when the person beside me saw I had my stuff, she went back to go look for her stuff. Now, I saw three ladies on top of each other, and the one on top was trapping the ones below. And, they were screaming for help. And there was a guy that was sitting on the ground, spread eagled, just looking. And I remember thinking to myself that, "Ah, we're all in shock here, like help. It was later that I found that he couldn't move because his legs were broken. So I'm unhooking the person on top, and she's trapping the ones below. And I remember, because her, you could see the white of her bone. It was not a very pleasant sight. But I remember saying to her that at least you're alive, they can fix your body, right? And those three ladies ended up being the daughters of the Kogi state governor. Now, we were in a field. We don't know where we were. There was a lady that was crying. So she had a broken hand, and I'm not sure if her leg was broken, but she had a broken hand and she was crying, her brother, her brother. In the northern culture, the men sit in front, the women sit at the back. And so I said to her, your brother is fine, because in my mind, the plane had broken in half. We were in one part, and there was probably another group of people in another part somewhere. And so I said, you're alive, they will find your brother. Now, in the middle of all of this, villagers had heard the commotion, then they start to run, in our direction. And that's when we now discover that the plane had crashed outside of the airport. But the people in the airport did not know that the plane had gone down outside of the airport. Yeah. So they ran to the airport, came back with a pickup truck for the three of us that could move, right? And so they put us in that truck, and we were in this muddy field. And so the truck was jostling. And by the time we got to the airport hospital, we're bringing in bodies and all of that stuff, I just had this irrational desire to be as far away from the airport as possible. So I called my friends who had literally dropped me like an hour or so before to say, this is what has happened. Please, can you come and get me? And so they came to pick me. And then they took me to a private hospital where the first thing that they would do was to put me on a morphine drip, because of the headache. Now, they're fixing the morphine drip. And then my mom calls me and she's like, CNN breaking news. They say that the airport in Sokoto, it must be going crazy because a plane that should have come to Sokoto, you get crashed, in Abuja. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I couldn't tell her that I was on the.
I was on it.
So, I slept, woke up, and, my flatmates' parents wanted to go greet my mom, Eku, whatever the greeting is for surviving plane crash, and my friends were telling me you need to go to the military hospital where they're keeping survivors because they would just think that you died and they couldn't find your body. And so I had to now call my mom to let her know that I was one of the survivors of the plane crash. And so I called her and I told her, and she just gave the phone to my brother that I don't know what your sister is saying, you know.
Yes.
And she says that she looked in the mirror and asked the Lord, like, why me? What is this about? And the Lord says that my grace is sufficient for you and my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And that was what she held on to through that process. So I go to the military hospital and they keep me there for 3 days to make sure that I had no internal injuries, which I did not. And so the next morning, Monday morning, 4 a.m., I wake up and CNN is playing the story. I now realize and I start to weep because I realize that the only part of the plane that survived was literally the tail end, which is where, I was in. And so of the 105 people that were on the plane, only nine survived. And of the nine that survived, only one had no injuries. And that was me, to the glory of God.
Hallelujah.
So I'm crying, and then a nurse comes and says, "Why are you crying? You should be grateful." I'm like, "I'm crying because I'm grateful, auntie." Like, let me pray. So anyway, the president comes, ministers come, and because I'm one of the more lucid ones, there are so many interviews that happened in that state. So people were telling me, "Oh, I heard you on the radio," and which radio? I didn't do any radio interview, but literally they must have been interviewing me while these people were speaking to me.
And it's all a
So
blur, right?
now,
Because it's all a blur because you were just doing
yeah,
interview after interview.
exactly. So I didn't even know who was who and what was what. So, but I had a conundrum because I was in Abuja, right? And it was 9 hours by road to Sokoto, 9 hours by road to Lagos. So I was right in the middle. Where am I going from here? And my mom was like, "Are you crazy? You're coming back to Lagos." So destination sorted. And I had a friend who worked in Virgin Nigeria at the time, and he said to me, he said, "Esther, God did not save you on Sunday to kill you on Wednesday. Do you get? You will fly back." Now, by Wednesday morning, I'm excited to be leaving the hospital because I want to go home. I want to be with my family. So I'm excited until I get to the airport. get on the tarmac and see the plane, I start to weep. I'm crying, I'm crying, I'm crying. And so the airport manager takes me to the cockpit and he shows me the pilots, right? And my dad says, he calls me a word. I'm not going to use the word because what he's like, because I said my heart was calm when I saw that they were rainbow people that were flying. I said, okay, people know what you're doing, carry on. So they now ask me, do you want to stay in the cockpit with us? I said, do I look like I'm mad? You fly the plane, I will be at the back of the plane. And so I cried throughout the hour or so of the flight. And people were looking like, who is this one that is just entering plane for the first time? Because you get it, just I was like this village girl. But at the end of the flight, they said, we want to dedicate this flight to Esther Longe, one of the survivors of the ADC plane crash. And so, people were asking, who, pressing money, taking pictures, all of that stuff. Anyway, I got home and my mom carried me on her laps, just like she had done when she was releasing me to start the NYC process. And, channels, television carried it, all of that stuff. But my house was inundated with people. People wanted to see this person that had survived the plane crash. Nigerians are interesting people. God made you survive for a reason. Asking what is your purpose? I'm like, which purpose now? Do you get, as in like somebody gives you a Bugatti? Do you understand? What do you want? You want my firstborn? Like, what do you need from me, right?
Mm.
And then people are like, oh, second Jesus. So it was a lot of pressure. And before I knew it, I started to have panic attacks, and even entered into a 2-year period of survivor's guilt, right, of depression. And it wasn't until I was in my church, so I left Nigeria the year after because my parents didn't want me to be in Nigeria for the 1 year anniversary. And it wasn't until the year after, which is 2 years after the plane crash, and I was in my church in Cardiff, and I got, deliverance because the Lord was like, listen, if I give you the gift of eternal life and you can accept that, then you can accept this second run or second, turn at life, even with all these trials and tribulations. And it was such a simple yet profound statement that pierced through the darkness that was over my mind. And then I was like, even if all I have to do is just to testify of your goodness, right, then I'll do that. And so a lot of times when people think about even what I do now, they think that is a direct result of surviving a plane crash, but it's not true because I actually didn't like telling people that I survived a plane crash because I don't look like someone that survived a plane crash. If I don't tell you, you won't know.
Yeah.
So I only committed to once a year on the anniversary, sharing it in a new place. But then I had
Mm.
this journey with intimacy with God, and that is what has changed, the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
But I do admit willingly that the plane crash has given me some of the platforms that I enjoy today. Surviving the plane crash has given me a platform.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. I think when you said you had to catch a plane 3 days later, I'm not being funny. If it was me, I'll walk to Lagos. I would just say, you know what, I'm just going to walk over. I'll cycle to Lagos. So that was so brave of you. And wow, wow. And have you, out of curiosity, how old are your kids?
So
How
my
them?
daughter is 7 and my son is 5.
Okay, so they're still a bit young to kind of
No,
understand and go, wow. Or have you had that
no,
with them yet?
no, no, oh no. When is my mother?
Oh,
Whoever played
really?
the plane crash video. So I have a plane crash video that went viral like 3 years ago. And I think it's my
Okay.
mom that played the video. I was like, how are you gonna do this? So my son doesn't get
How
it,
you
but
gonna
my,
do
my
this?
daughter, my daughter is like, oh no, I don't want to see. So anytime she sees the black and white, so the video is in black and white. So every time she sees black and white, no, I don't want to see. Oh, I wish you didn't survive. I was just like, I think that this is too much information for your mind to process right now. But she knows,
Exactly.
yeah, she knows. She's very aware.
Knows. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Wow,
Mm,
thank you so much. I mean, there's so much in that story. I was interested. You're the first person to confirm to me when I've heard that sitting at the back is actually safer on planes. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that sitting at the back is
yeah.
actually safer in the unlikely event that what happened to you happens again. Sitting in the
Mm,
back, I mean, it's very rare anybody makes it, but if you're gonna have a chance, at the back is probably better chances than being up front.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, amazing. So thank you so much for that. And I won't even unpack that much because I think everyone else, it's a big enough testimony for everyone who's heard it to take what they want from it. But thank you so much. But the other then, when I was following you, what I now heard was you said that, and you've kind of confirmed it was that it didn't immediately lead to this. You didn't wake up next day and be like, I'm all for God, I'm on fire. It was a gradual process. And you mentioned somewhere that Actually, you went into a depression for a while, and you suffered survivor's guilt. Tell us a bit more about that. That
Yeah,
survivor's guilt and that whole feeling and depression.
yeah. So if on that plane there was the Sultan of Sokoto, his son and his grandson. There was a mom with four kids. There was a deacon even in my church growing up, right? So there were so many amazing people that died on
By the
that
world
plane.
standards, really high, amazing people.
Yes. And then, there's this little peep squeak of a girl that all the headlines, miracle girl, and I'm just like, why? Like, what do you want? Do you understand? Especially because it really messed with my mind and my theology up until that point. Because, like I said, coming from my background of a single parent, whatever, where God is heavenly uncle, and then people are now ascribing this. Did you see the thumbs up? This Mac and his thing, Anyway, so
Mm,
and coming from my, from my background, coming from, and people are saying, "Oh, God saved you for a reason, for purpose," second Jesus, and I'm like, I didn't even know that he knew me or cared about me to do this amazing thing. So, what do you want? Do you want me to be a missionary somewhere? Like, what do you require from me, please?
mm. What's the
And
price I
so,
pay for this?
thank you. Like,
Yeah.
what do you need? Like, what? Like, why me? And so it was a lot. It was a lot,
Mm,
and to be honest, I'm not even somebody till now that really likes spotlight. So all the
mm,
attention was a lot. It was a lot. And I did not know how to process it. It gave me panic attacks. And so I remember in January or so of 2008, one of the ladies she was like my junior in Queen's College, and she committed suicide. And people were like, how? Why was she commit suicide? Da, 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 da. And I was like, I can understand it. You can be in such a dark place, that the hope, the will to live, and up until that point, I was the funniest person. I could make everybody laugh, but I would see life from third person perspective. Why are you laughing? What's funny? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm having a conversation and I'll just be, almost like
mm,
an out of body experience, looking at like, why are you laughing? And it wasn't until that simple but profound statement just brought light and broke the darkness. So, but I have a lot of empathy, therefore, that's why the mind is so powerful because the mind can literally halt you in your tracks. It can make you disengage from the world as you know it. And so one of my own life's messages is a message of hope and encouragement and also deliverance, just making you embrace freedom on different planes of your life.
thank you. And that kind of leads us nicely into one of your flagship programs you do. And I encourage everyone to check out Esther Longe's Instagram. And she talked a lot about her Fortified Mind program. And go there for more information. I'm sure she'll share a bit more about it before we finish as we come to the end. But so when I looked at the Fortified Mind, it talks about sort of identifying and dealing with strongholds. And it's overcoming battles of the mind, dealing with imposter syndrome and elevated visioning. And tell us a bit more because you've spoken about the mind. So clearly, the mind is something even when we spoke about the book you're reading, the mind is something that fascinates you, and for any number of reasons. So for a lot of us that are struggling, and fortified mind, what is the problem it's trying to solve for a lot of us? Because
I find that. So I'm called to like high achieving individuals. And I feel like they are often overlooked because people believe that, oh, for you to be so accomplished, intellectual to get to where you are, you don't have problem, literally. But a lot of times we don't realize how we intuitively put a cap on ourselves and the things that we aspire to because of what our mind conceives about what
hmm,
we can aspire to, right? So there's some people that no matter where they have gotten to, and you'll see this in your career coaching, I'm sure, they believe that is luck, or, one day they'll realize that I'm not really worthy of this space that I'm occupying.
hmm.
Meanwhile, everybody else is looking at them like, are you serious? You are the best thing since sliced bread.
It's
Or
almost
people
like
just say,
another self-doubt that it's almost like I got lucky or am I that good? And it even happens to me
yeah,
sometimes. People go, look at what you've done. I go, what have I done? What have I done? And
You can.
you minimize, you minimize everything you've done in relation to what others see you. So when others talk about it, like, who are you
They're
talking
talking
about?
about, so
Is it me?
exactly. It's like they're seeing something that you can't see, you know.
Yes.
And because things come easily to you, you almost minimize the efficacy of those things, because for you, like, everybody should be
Yeah.
able to do this. This is not a big deal. But you don't realize that there are
Yes.
gifts and graces that are operating in your life. So things that are easy
Yeah.
for you are not necessarily easy for other people. I've also seen the most remarkable people, strong, even people that other people lean on, but they don't believe that they deserve better than where they are. They don't believe that they can have everything. They believe that, okay, I'm thriving in one area and I thank God for the area I'm thriving in, but this is as good as it's going to get. And I'm like, based on what? Based on what? Or there are some people who, and you know, when I talk about strongholds, people think, oh, strong is such a strong, but it's literally a faulty mindset that keeps you imprisoned from entering into the freedom of everything that is possible for you.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not
Yes.
the enemies of your father's house. You know, father is literally, because those ones, at least you, you can fight demon, you can pray. But how do you fight your mind?
Yes. The
How do
mind
you
is the
fight yourself?
battlefield, right?
I'm telling you, how do you fight
Yeah.
yourself?
Yes.
So somebody can be
Yes.
telling you, I think you should go after this. I think you can do this. And you're like, no, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know what you're
Because
saying.
when it
Sometimes,
comes to time to actually do it, and what I find amazing about it, you're saying is that in their heart of hearts, all these people, they know they can do it. But when it comes
mm-hmm,
time to commit, it's almost as if they're also afraid of success. Sometimes they're not even afraid of failure. It's like they're afraid of, but what if I'm successful? It's going to ask more of me and more of me and more of me. And then they rather stay safe.
I
And
feel
I'm
like
saying all
running.
this
I feel like
because,
running around this room right now.
but I'm saying that also because I see it and being vulnerable as well, I see it
Yeah,
in myself
yeah.
sometimes.
Me
And
too. And my hands are up. Me too. Me
so
too.
being consistent, I'll do a bit, then
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back. I'll do
Yeah.
a bit, then I'll hold back instead of
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
step on the accelerator and just
I
push
go.
to the
Yes.
very end.
So that's why I'm running around, because we are our own clients. Do you understand? And that's easy for me to identify it. When I have it, because you know, the people that are afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of failure. Do you understand? You know, because
Yeah,
with the knowledge that we have, we don't fail. Do you understand what I mean? Like, we
yeah,
adapt. You know, but success, then what will happen to this life that I've built? Then what will it
yes,
demand from me? Then I have to expand into
yes,
this. Then I have to do this. Then what if I cannot? I don't have the capacity for the more. What if so you now talk yourself out of things? And then,
yes.
you know, a lot of times now have people say, "Well, it's okay. I'll just help other people. I'll just
I'll just help
coach
other
other
people.
people." Shots fired in both
And then
directions.
you remain small. You remain small. And usually such people are also intelligent enough to know that life is passing you by. So it becomes a
Mm-hmm,
mental torture as well. Life is passing you
mm-hmm,
by.
mm-hmm,
Your dreams are fading. So
mm-hmm,
it's not like they're ignorant of. So when people are even coaching them, sometimes it's even
mm-hmm.
harder to coach or speak to such people because they can answer, they can, everything you want to say, they will say it for you
Yeah,
because they know
and
the
that's
answer.
why
So it's almost like at some point, you just have to do it yourself because I can't help you. Because intellectually,
you already know the
you know everything.
answers. And so that's why I believe that even my own strategy, I go, so I go to the roots, because a lot of these things have their foundations in childhood. They have their foundations in things that accessed our minds before we had the ability to defend ourselves. So there are things that
Mm,
people will say to you now as an adult that you're like, "Are you crazy? As in, are you? What did you smoke? Could you get before coming to me?" Do you understand what I mean? But as a child, it has the ability to devastate you. And so
yeah.
you don't realize that you now begin to take position based on what happened in childhood. From that age, you begin to take a
Mm,
position and you begin to protect yourself. These are the parameters of my life. Do you get? So that I never feel this feeling again. I will never put myself in a position. And every time you put those parameters around you, you're literally walling yourself in. And some people say, what's wrong with that? I'm protected. I don't get to be hurt. But you also don't get to experience, so you don't feel the low lows of being hurt, but you don't feel the high highs of the joy that comes from accomplishing what your destiny is.
yes,
And so we now have to
yes. And it's,
begin, mhm, we now begin
no,
to
I was just saying
unpack.
because
Tell me.
you have to unpack it, right? But
Yes.
there's something you said because could it be also that you were so young that may not even visually remember what the event was that caused you to be like
Mm-hmm.
this. Could that be as
Yes.
well that you can never,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
too young, so you can never really remember what the event was that made you as you are?
Yes. And so that's why even the 45 mind is such a unique course, because it is both um intelligence systems, but also God. Whereas I'm talking to people, they now remember, oh, my primary school teacher said this to me. Why am I remembering my primary school teacher? I've not thought about them in 30, do you get 30 years? All of a sudden, I'm like, stay there, because there's something there. There's something that happened in that time frame that the Holy Spirit is bringing to your remembrance, so that you know that that's where the issue started. So a lot of times, if you're talking to adults and you're saying, oh, I see that, there's a fear of rejection. I see that, you don't allow yourself to be seen or pursue your light. They'll say, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. 5 years ago, my best friend did this to me. 10 years, no, that is just a symptom, is not the root.
That is a
The root
symptom.
usually
It's
would
not
have
the root
happened in
cause.
your childhood. And so what you find is that your experiences are just corroborating this script that has already been planted. And so I use an analogy which I feel captures it, where I read it in the book years ago about this elephant, that when the elephant was a baby elephant, it was tied to a tree. And so as a baby is trying to, remove itself from that and trying to yank, but it can't because it doesn't have the strength. And so it tries a few days and then stops. As that elephant becomes older, the owner can just tie it to the tree and walk away, because the elephant is not even going to try to shift. Meanwhile, at that point of vision in its lifespan, it can destroy the whole forest if you allow it.
At its
And I found
size,
that,
it can just walk away. So a lot
and
of
in
us
that,
we are
mhm,
free. The prison is open. The door
mm,
is open, but we
yeah.
don't realize that we're just sitting down in the prison, thinking we're in prison, even though the door
Number
is
one. And
open.
number two, you also even have the strength not just to free yourself, but to free others, because you are that
Mm.
powerful. So that's
Oh
what even the
yes,
battle is for. That's what the battle is about. Because you find, Femi, just like you and I, that the lessons that we have learned, we are paying it forward. So you're doing it through your coaching. I'm
yeah,
doing it through my coaching. You know what I mean? So there is
yeah.
something about people that are strong, people that have gone through stuff, that the devil even knows that inside of you is the ability to liberate other people. So if he can keep you trapped, not even understanding the power that you carry and also the power that you carry for liberation for others, then he has not just stopped you in your tracks, he's probably stopped another generation that is coming after you. And so that's why the
Which is just
battle.
like if you use the analogy of like
Mhm.
Jesus Christ, the
Mm,
temptation of Jesus Christ was really about not just him, but if you tempt Jesus and he falls, then God's plan for salvation of the whole of humanity is
is gone.
destroyed.
Yeah.
So it's not just you the enemy is attacking, but also, and if you don't even want to go spiritual, by you not achieving yourself, you are not fulfilling your purpose and destiny and liberating everyone else you should liberate. So it's like for the price of
Mhm.
one, 1,000 others are locked down as well
So
forever.
now think about this for me. So I mean, yes, like if I'm not even being spiritual, like, think about it. Imagine inside of you is, when I won't say another Apple, but a tech solution that has not even been conceptualized yet.
Yeah.
But imagine that the person is now riddled with self doubt, imposter syndrome, all of those things, and they know that they have the ability. They've seen that vision clearly. They even see the end. But that self doubt, no, 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 is it me? Can it be? No? They shut it down. Meanwhile, you pursuing that vision not only changes the landscape of your finances, your family's finances forever, but there are people that will be employed by you. Look at all the people that
Mm.
Apple is or Tesla is. Do you get even not even that they're even employing, but that by virtue of their stocks and shares they have made money. There's so many people that are connected to you and this
We are
one
connected through
talent
Apple
or the,
devices. We are connected to Apple devices, and because of us, we are also creating content that helps others. So the multiplier effect
yeah,
of
and,
your
and so
gift
and
and
that's why for anybody that looks at themselves and says, do I even carry value? I'm looking at you like you don't know. If you knew, you would stand up and shine your light, because there's so many people that are dependent on what it is that you're carrying.
no, that's amazing. That's amazing. No, as I'm talking to you, as we are bonding on this, I can see that we're gonna have to look for more time to just do a series on unpacking some of these
Yes,
things.
yes,
Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes,
So
definitely.
there was one more thing I want to talk about. You said your heart is your superpower. As I wrap
Yeah.
up, when you say your heart is your superpower, how is it? Because you seem like someone that's so clear thought, so have clarity of thought. But the heart, when people say heart, they usually think it just means emotion. Does that mean you are in touch with your emotions, or you're able to control your emotions? When you say your heart is your superpower, what does it mean for you?
So first, I think we also have to, there's almost like this um, misconception that being a feelings based person means that you are unstable and
Mm,
or you're erratic all over, emotional, almost like, oh, you're so emotional. Um, yes and no, right? You can be in touch with your feelings and use so like gut instinct. You do you know what I mean? Your
mm,
gut instinct tells you that this thing is off, and then you pursue it logically, and you now realize that actually, do you get, my gut instinct already told me that these flaws that I'm now uncovering through my research, do you understand? But my gut instinct had led me. So being a feelings based person is not a flaw. Do you get? It is actually something that if you can hone, and we've been talking about this, throughout the thread of this conversation, it's about being aware and honing yourself, honing your gifts and even if you are logical as well, you must also be able to give space for, I feel like this is right, let me do it. It may not always make sense, so we have to balance things. Now, when I say that my heart is my superpower, I am very clear in thought, right? I have logic, but at the base, if I be between feelings and logic, I'm a feelings person, right? I go with my
mm,
gut first, and then my mind catches up after. But what I actually do mean is that I believe that a lot of my purpose, a lot of my calling as an individual is people based, right? And for you to be able to serve people, your heart must be in it. It's not something that is a mind thing. Your heart
mm.
you must love people. You must care about their success. Must want them to do.
You
You
must
must
feel for
feel
people.
they're empathetic, over even sympathetic. You must be able to enter the trenches and bring them out to the other side. Now, so my ability to see where people are. So even like I said, I was talking about how I'm called to strong individuals. A lot of times people say, oh, how are you if you're a strong person? And they don't wait for the answer because you're Femi, you're fine. You're not living in London, you're living, But a lot of times people don't look in the eyes. And in the eyes, as they say in Yoruba, is the eyes that the conversation is.
The window to the soul. Yeah,
I'm telling you,
is
and a lot of times I'm able to look at people's eyes and look beyond the facade of how they present to the world to see where they are really, really, and to see if they're in pain and to enter the trenches with them. Create a safe space for these strong leaders to be able to unpack and say, today I don't got this. Do you get? I need help. I need
yeah.
encouragement. Now,
Leave the
leave it.
facade aside. Let's
But for a
cut
lot
through to the heart of the matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I see what you did there, the heart of the matter. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. But for a lot of leaders, right, people that are type A, people that are leading other people, they don't have that luxury a lot of times because
Mm.
whatever you're going through, you must have to suck it up and get on with it because there are people that require you to show up every day. And
It
that's why
looks
you
like
find that
weakness.
at that level, when burnout happens, is epic because the person says, I'm not doing again. They take their backpack, they
It's a
go
clash.
and
It's a clash and
tell me,
burn.
do
It's a complete clash
mountain
and burn.
climbing. Yeah, they don't want to
Yeah.
be in any office environment, but it doesn't have to get there. So one of my life's duties is to provide safe spaces for high level people to unpack before they get to that place of burnout or crashing. Now,
Mm.
when your heart is your superpower, it also gets attacked, right? So hurting people hurt people, right? So that's where so you have a lot of the work I do, and that's why I'm so aware of the different aspects of my life, what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling it, because I have to be careful to make sure that I'm always able to function optimally for the people that I'm called to. So even when I am
Yeah.
hurt and all of this, I have to process it quickly, and I have my toolkits to process. You know what I mean? So that I can show up and be the person that my people need me to be, my tribe needs me to be. So I like how we're pulling everything together, even with the different aspects
Yeah.
that we're speaking about. So that's what I mean when I say my heart is my superpower over my brain, because my heart has
Over.
actually led me into places and spaces that my brain could not.
Yeah. Yes. And because the heart ultimately, people can feel the heart, and a genuine heart is what
Yeah,
people are drawn to. You can get
yeah.
logic in books, you can get logic anywhere,
Oh,
but
good.
genuine people, and in this world of AI and everything, the people that are going to win are people that are authentic and genuine
Yeah.
and are real. Because
Yeah.
everything else you can get from, you can just go into Chat GPT or whatever and get the information you
Yeah.
need. So
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much. So where can people find you? Where can people? What are you up to now? What's happening? Anything big happening over the next few months? Where can people find you, or learn more from you, or just tap into you and get more from you?
Okay, so the easiest place to get, updates on what it is that I'm up to is my Instagram, Esther Longe, no A, Esther Longe, long with an
Mm-hmm.
E. And yes, this year is a big year for me. I turned 40. Whoop. And so I have a book coming up in November. One of my flagship coaching programs is called the Unicorn Program, and that starts in January. So there are different ways to connect, but the easiest way to find all of that information is on my Instagram page at Esther Longe.
Fantastic. Thank you. So if you had one party message for people today, mentor with Esther, your mentor, if you're going to leave something, if you're going to leave a mentor message for the world, what will you leave for all our listeners and guests as they go to wrap up?
I would say that you matter. You are created on purpose for purpose, and so the best thing you can do is to discover why on earth you are here and to lean into it. Own your uniqueness. Stop trying to be like everybody else. You are created, purpose built for whatever it is that is the message of your life. And there are people that are waiting for you to find it so that they can align with what is being built in and through you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Esther. It's been an absolute pleasure. You heard it there. It's really about purpose and also connecting your life story all together to bring it to where you are today. But also your faith is one of is your compass as well to direct you as you go. I can't speak more about this podcast. You've just got to listen to it. It's been transformational. It has been for me as well. And I leave here inspired, motivated. And I encourage you as well to go back. And you're going to need to listen to this more than once. Make sure you do, to make sure you get everything out of it. So for me and Esther, it's get unleashed, stay unleashed, and have a blessed week.